Okay, so I'm back here in conversation with Zoe Sharp, physiotherapist. So Zoe, remind us again who you are, what do you do?
So, yeah, I'm Zoe and I'm a physiotherapist mainly in musculoskeletal physio, but have been doing pelvic health physio for the last 6 months and looking to do a lot more in that going forwards with Francis.
Really passionate about women's health as well, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, which is really, really great to hear. So here we are back in conversation, and we are going to talk about today the sort of stages that we go through in
Yeah.
life that can impact the pelvic floor. So start us off, Zoe. So what kind of things happen? What happens at what stage
So
of
the
life?
typical one that everyone always refers to is that they didn't really think about their pelvic floor until pregnancy or till after they had their baby. So your pelvic floor, where it sits and where it supports all of your kind of pelvic organs, you notice it in pregnancy because there's a lot more pressure and it has to work a lot harder and there's a lot more hormone changes. So there's lots of different kind of demands on the pelvic floor during pregnancy. So that can be one of the first things that can
Yep.
affect it. Not everyone that has a baby will have an issue with the pelvic floor, but it can be a contributing factor, but not always. So when you're giving birth for a vaginal delivery as well, that also uses the pelvic floor for that as well. So big impact on the pelvic floor, but again, not doesn't always end up with an issue with the pelvic floor. During pregnancy as well, or during delivery, if there's any instruments used, if there's any tearing, any stitching, that can also be slight trauma to the pelvic floor. Again,
Okay.
doesn't always mean that there's going to be an issue, but it can impact the pelvic floor. So after you've had a baby, there's lots of hormone changes and your body has been through a significant change in pregnancy. So there is an expected level of change with your body after pregnancy and a certain amount of time that you want to give your body to recover and heal
Yeah.
before you start presuming, oh no, there's a problem. Give your body that time to heal. And if things are different and it's not going away, then absolutely go to your GP. So other things that can affect your pelvic floor, menopause is a big one, which we will come on to. But things like a chronic cough can really affect your pelvic floor.
Right.
When your diaphragm's going down, your pelvic floor needs to come up to meet it. So if you have a long-term health condition where you're constantly coughing, that's a lot more strain for your pelvic floor.
Right.
And across years of your life, that can be a lot of impact through your pelvic floor. Things like obesity can affect the pelvic floor as well, and also connective tissue disorders. So things like hypermobility,
Yeah.
EDS, different connective tissue build-up. Your pelvic floor is a muscle, like any other muscle in your body. So that's also going to impact the way that your muscles work, and your pelvic floor is included within that as well.
Wow, there's a lot there, isn't there? There's a lot of things because I think
Yeah.
we all generally think about pregnancy,
Yeah.
but we do know that women, even women who don't have babies,
Yeah.
they still can, they still need to be mindful of their
Yeah,
pelvic
definitely.
floor
Yeah.
as well, don't they? But also, the whole thing around hypermobility. I talk to a lot of women who are hypermobile, but hadn't really connected that might affect their pelvic floor as well. So that's really, really interesting. And the whole thing around hormones as well. We know that there's massive changes in hormones during pregnancy, isn't there? And there's a lot of preparation in the body that goes on as a woman is pregnant, which which you can kind of then see how the pelvic floor may be needed to kind of work with that as well. So we're going to come back on another conversation about pregnancy because there's a lot there to cover, but I thought it might be really useful to kind of just talk a little bit about menopause and what happens then, because sometimes that can be the first point as well, because a woman may have had a baby and things might have gone back to normal, and then suddenly, like with myself, I know now that it was probably perimenopause, that was the start of my issues that I had. Can we talk a little bit more about why that might happen?
Yeah, definitely. So, with regards to estrogen, really important hormone for women, it's kind of one of the key anabolic steroids in the body, one of the natural anabolic steroids. So, that's responsible for the repair of the cells in the body. So, before menopause, you have an equal amount of breakdown to repair.
Yeah.
You lose that estrogen. So, there's almost a bit of an imbalance. So then you need to work harder to keep that strength. And that's not just in the pelvic floor, that's generally all of your muscles across the body. You need to look after them slightly differently, because you're normal, you have a new normal after menopause. And I think it's not always a bad thing that you're going through menopause, but it's a way that you need to look at how you need to treat your body differently.
Those changes, and I think for some women that's really difficult to comprehend, that they're changing. Everything's changing about you. Your body's changing, the way you look is changing, you know, so it's really, really hard. But again, you know, I talk to a lot of women who hadn't even really connected the issue around muscular aches and pains, and surely that's going to impact the pelvic floor as well, isn't it? Because like we said, it's a muscle.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's a really key muscle, and that tends to be where people might then have some continence issues crop up, or feel some laxity, or wonder if they've got prolapse, because things are feeling a little bit different. They're losing the estrogen, so everything is starting to feel a little bit different, and that's when they tend to go to their GP, because it's a bit more of a change and they're not sure what's going on. So that's when they tend to reach out for help, which is good that they do that, and it's becoming more and more prevalent that they do, and it's less and less normalized that you just put up with it, which is good.
Absolutely. So we know we've got estrogen receptors all over the body, don't we? And they're all around not just the pelvic floor, but they're around all those pelvic organs as well, aren't they? Around the bladder, in the vagina, the vulva, they are the urethra as well. I'm getting my anatomy out now. That is pretty, I'm remembering. So estrogen all around those organs as well. So we know that as estrogen decline, it can be one area, can't it, that that estrogen leaves, you know, when it's kind of declining, it's fluctuating, that we can have issues. Estrogen's also an anti-inflammatory hormone. It's a lubricating hormone as well. And we know that estrogen we need as a lubricant within the vagina and that as well. And maybe this is a good opportunity just to talk about something called vaginal estrogen, because that can be a treatment, can't it, that can help and support women who are perimenopause, menopause, post-menopause and beyond. And I think it's really important to just offer up that, you know, perimenopause is that period of time, 41 years is average age. You know, we go 10 years in, you know, we're still having our periods, but our hormones are fluctuating. Average age of menopause when your periods end is around 52. And then we go into post-menopause, and we're there for the rest of our life, aren't we? Unfortunately, because hormones do not come back again. So for so many women, so many times I hear, and I think Zoe, you probably agree, women feel that, well, menopause happened maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, which is when their periods ended. Maybe some of their other symptoms have subsided, but actually we're in hormone decline for the rest of our life. And for some women, that's a third of their life. We know now that women live on average to the age of about 82. You know, so if average age of your period stopping is 52, then 30 years you're going to live. And your pelvic floor and your bladder and bowel, all those issues could come on much later on. You know, it might be a symptom of that comes much later on. So vaginal estrogens are really easy preparation, easy to obtain from your GP on prescription as well, but that can really work wonders, can't it, for supporting women, especially with leaks and that as well, because it pops some estrogen back into that area, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think most GPs will offer it. It's in the NICE guidelines that it's offered for urogenital problems as one of the kind of first line of treatment, if it's appropriate for you. There's a couple of cases where it's not always appropriate, but with regards to estrogen, I think I read somewhere that like if estrogen was water and your body needs watering, your vagina and the surrounding tissues needs more watering. It needs extra water.
So I think even, and it's really safe, isn't it? I mean, we know now that HRT, replacing your hormones, is, you know, for majority of women is a safe treatment, but vaginal estrogen is a really, really safe preparation. It's quite a small dose of estrogen that you get, and you're right, it just re-lubricates that whole area. So if, for instance, you were put off going to see someone like Zoe and get treatment because maybe you were struggling with irritation, vaginal irritation, or soreness, dryness, and you're thinking, I couldn't bear anyone to touch me, you know, going through a course of, you know, vaginal estrogen could be a real prep for that, couldn't it, to really help?
Yeah, I mean, have that discussion with your GP about what's appropriate for you, but then also you don't always have to have that internal examination with a physio.
Yeah,
So
of course.
it's worth going and having that conversation and being open about it to get your physio's recommendation on things surrounding that as well.
Yeah, definitely. So your department, not necessarily you, would that be a recommendation? Could vaginal estrogen be a recommendation in the plan that comes out of physio, pelvic physio for
Yeah, so
department?
it really depends on kind of what's appropriate for individual management, but if it's felt appropriate by the physio, then it might be that they send a letter to your doctor to recommend that you go and speak to your GP about
Right. Good.
about taking that. Yeah
That's really, really good, because I'm finding that women still just don't really understand about vaginal estrogen, so it's good that that all professionals, I suppose, that are thinking about it and are guiding women to go and find out more about it.
It's one of the many puzzle pieces that can help with pelvic health physio.
And really help. I know for myself personally, it really helped with urgency and frequency, calmed that down massively. So it's something worthwhile, having a look at. Older women, so thinking about life stages, so we're postmenopausal now, so an older lady who may be if they're listening, or somebody out there's got a mum who they know is really struggling with a lot of the things we've talked about, they shouldn't be fearful either. Just because you're in your 70s, you shouldn't put up with, because it's not aging, is it? Well, it's a bit of aging.
Aging definitely comes into it. But you're never too old to seek help. Like, it's never past the point of seeking help. Well, sometimes it might be, but I think unless you've gone and you've sought out that information, you're never going to know. And if you don't make a change, then nothing is going to change. So if you want to make a change in your life, then reach out, speak to your health professional, because it might be able to help.
Absolutely. And I think we live, I think I said, we live 30 odd years postmenopausal, it's a third of our life, and women today, are still really active at 70, living, we're living longer, we're living more active, so actually, getting those things sorted or working towards sorting them out can actually mean that you maybe have another 10 years of life that's going to be, you're going to be able to remain active.
And just having that good quality of life is really important as well, because if you want those extra 10 years, you want a good quality of life.
Of course you do, absolutely. So anyway, I hope that helps. So a little bit there about the different stages. So it's worth always thinking about where your stage is, where you're at the moment. So when you go and talk to your health professional, you can kind of just guide them, where you're at, what your goals are, what it is that you want to achieve, and then they can kind of guide you appropriately and hopefully get you the referrals, that you need. Okay, thanks, Zoe.